Who could have predicted that the man who had been my closest friend for 15 years would disappear with my fiancée just 2 days before my wedding? But the real shock was where I found them 6 months later. My name is Michael Thompson, I'm 34 years old and I work as a project manager at a software company in Seattle. Before I tell you this story, could you share in the comments where you're watching from? It really makes us happy to see how these stories reach people from all over the world. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this is the kind of story you won't forget. James Morrison and I had been friends since middle school. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same high school, and even finished college in the same city. He was like a brother to me. My family had practically adopted him. When my mom was sick, James spent more time at the hospital than I did. When my dad passed away, he handled the funeral arrangements. I shared everything with this man. I met Jessica 3 years ago at a software conference. She was a marketing specialist, I was on the technical side. I don't know if love at first sight exists, but when I saw Jessica, my heart literally stopped. Her brunette hair, green eyes, and that smile. When James met her, he said, "Dude, this woman was made for you." I couldn't realize how right he was at the time. Our relationship developed quickly. Jessica was smart, witty, and full of life. She and James hit it off immediately, too. The three of us constantly spent time together. Weekend picnics, movies, sometimes trips on James's boat. We were the perfect trio. Jessica would sometimes say, "James is really a wonderful friend, you're so lucky." And I would proudly respond, "He's like my brother." 2 years later, I proposed to Jessica, on James's boat, at sunset, with Seattle's beautiful view. James and I had planned everything beforehand. He was so excited as if he was getting married himself. He kept saying, "My brother is finally going to settle down." Wedding preparations took a full year. Jessica was detail-oriented. She wanted everything to be perfect, and I wanted to make this dream come true for her. I had saved $50,000 for this wedding. James would be my best man, of course. He was with us through every stage of wedding planning. We decided everything together, from venue selection to flower arrangements, from menu to music. A week before the wedding, strange things started happening. Jessica's phone was constantly ringing, but she said it was work. James had also been a bit distant lately, not as spontaneous as before, but I thought it was wedding stress. Everyone was tense anyway. 3 days before our wedding, Tuesday evening, Jessica came home late. "There was a final meeting, everything's ready now," she said. But there was a strange sparkle in her eyes. Not happiness, something else. Excitement, fear. I couldn't quite figure it out. Wednesday evening, James called. "Dude, let's have your bachelor party tomorrow. Simple, just the two of us. Talk about old times," he said. It seemed odd because we already had bachelor party plans, but I said sure. Thursday morning, Jessica said, "I'm going shopping with the girls for the last time. I'll be back early in the evening," and left the house. She kissed me and said, "I love you so much, Michael." There was a strange farewell air in her voice, but I didn't notice it at the time. That evening I met with James, but he was weird too. He kept looking at his phone, was distracted. When I asked, "Is everything okay?" he said, "Of course, brother, just wedding excitement." But I had an uneasiness inside. When I got home, Jessica wasn't there, her phone was off. But there was a note in the bedroom. "Michael, I know this isn't the right way to do this, but I have no other choice. I love you, but we can't get married anymore. Please don't look for me. I'm sorry for everything." At first I thought it was a joke, maybe pre-wedding panic. But when I looked at Jessica's belongings, I noticed her suitcase was missing. Her important documents were gone. Her phone was off. Her family didn't know where she was either. I called James. He didn't answer either. His phone was off. I couldn't sleep that night. In the morning I went to the police, but they said if adults want to leave, they can leave. I called the wedding organizers, canceled everything. I talked to the guests one by one. It was one of the most embarrassing days of my life. But the real shock came from the bank. When I checked our wedding account, only $5,000 of the $50,000 remained. $45,000 had been withdrawn, and the person who withdrew it was Jessica, from our joint account, without my knowledge. That's when I realized this was a planned operation. I immediately examined the bank records. The money was withdrawn 4 days before the wedding, the day Jessica said she was going final shopping, and the withdrawal time was almost the same as when I was talking to James on the phone. I went back to the police, this time with a fraud complaint. Detective Martinez took the case. Unfortunately, these types of incidents are increasing. There are couples who steal large amounts of money before weddings. "It's usually planned," he said. "What about James? Is he planned too?" "Probably. Both disappeared at the same time. This can't be a coincidence." 3 weeks later, the first clue came. Jessica's credit card had been used in Las Vegas, but that was it. Then the trail went cold. A month later, I went to James's apartment. The place was empty with a "for rent" sign hanging. I talked to the doorman. He moved out a month ago. He was in a hurry. He came with a blonde lady, he said. From that day on, I focused on rebuilding my life. I returned to work, started spending time with friends, but there was anger inside me. Not just the theft of money, but dismissing a 15-year friendship, trampling on trust. 6 months passed. My life was starting to return to normal. Until that email came. Subject: urgent information for Michael Thompson. Hello Michael, I'm Sarah Williams. I live in San Diego. I think there are things you need to know about Jessica and James. We live in the same apartment building and I heard them talking about you. If you want to talk, you can call me at this number. My heart rate increased. I called immediately. Sarah was a divorced teacher in her 40s. Michael, they're living here as a married couple. They introduced themselves as Jessica and James Morrison. But last night they had a fight and Jessica yelled, "I'm tired of living with Michael's money." When I heard your name, I researched and she said, you should call the police, because they're playing the same game here too. Jessica got engaged to a rich man here, Robert Jenkins. He's also preparing for a wedding. My blood ran cold. They were playing the same game with someone else. Even worse, James got a job at that man's company. As a financial advisor, he has access to Robert's money. I immediately called Detective Martinez. I found Jessica and James, I said. I explained the situation. Great. But we need to coordinate with San Diego police. This is now interstate fraud. 2 days later, San Diego police caught Jessica and James. They found $130,000 cash in their house. Not just my money, they had started stealing from Robert too. The court process lasted 8 months. Jessica got 3 years. James got 4 years in prison. I got my money back, but the damage wasn't just financial. When I asked Jessica why in court, she said, "You were too good, Michael. James was more exciting." James never apologized, he said. Business is just business. Today, 2 years later, my life is back on track. I have a new relationship with Sarah. Yes, Sarah who warned me. Isn't that ironic? Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Jessica and James finished their sentences last month. I don't know where they are, and I don't want to know. But what I learned is this. It takes years to really know people. And sometimes even 15 years isn't enough. If this story taught you something, share it in the comments, because trust is important, but being naive is much more dangerous.